feel very relaxed after that music.
Yeah. I hear that music in my sleep sometimes.
Oh really? That's
Puts me to
concerning,
sleep.
Ian.
Welcome to another episode of Developers, otherwise known as Devx5. My name is Ian Jennings. This is Chris Chinchilla.
Hey.
We're your hosts, and today we're going to be looking at the world famous Netlify, which Chris let me know that he has a lot of experience in, and I have never used before, although I have a very good coworker who has worked there for a long time now. So just by her presence there, I know it's going to be great. And this is kind of also continuing the conversation from our last stream with Vercel and Next.js.
Yep. I'm interested to see what you think here, because maybe I should wait till the end before I. it's like I'm about to summarize the plot of a movie, but give it away without intending to. So maybe we'll just get started.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask you on your experience with it, but also not spoil anything. How about this? Did you like it better than Vercel, or which one would you prefer?
I think this is, I would have to sort of switch to Vercel now and kind of see what it brought me, which I haven't done, predominantly also because I'm operating some fairly antiquated static site generators like Jekyll and stuff mostly, which I think work best with Netlify still, predominantly because I just haven't had time to switch, and I have no reason to. It's a static site. It spits out HTML at the end of it. How I got there, no one really cares about, apart from me.
I don't know. You're not doing us justice then, right? Because that's the whole thing: is how you get there is what happens, right?
Yeah, and I have really pushed Jekyll to the limits of what it's really meant for. So I'm getting to that point where maybe I might do more, which actually I should document at some point. I have a lot of weird custom gems and all sorts of things, and actually this is kind of where Netlify has been going recently. Which is where I'm interested to see how you understand what they now do, because when I started with them, they offered much less, and now they offer much more. So I'm kind of interested to see what that is like for a new person to understand what they actually do.
I'm looking at the site now, so let me just why don't we start off here? Entire screen. You might have noticed I've switched to my Mac now.
Oh my god!
Yeah, the M1. It only took 2 weeks to get things working.
I'm even more excited. I don't think you're going to have any issues with Netlify, but we might have issues with other things in the future.
Modern web apps shipped faster, intuitive Git-based workflow, and powerful serverless platform to build, deploy, and collaborate on web apps.
Yeah.
So no longer is it just static hosting. Just launched collaborative previews. Power stakeholders to review and leave feedback about your web project. Okay. Get your site on the edge. Create an amazing experience for web in record time without thinking about servers or DevOps. So they're advertising it as an ecosystem for which I'm assuming static deployments, which is the word static on this page. Wow. That's different. So the positioning has changed.
It's changed massively. Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, I never even thought about that, and it makes sense because I think as we've seen with some of the tools and frameworks we've profiled here, but also in the general trend, is people don't really. It's not really called that anymore because there is the differentiation between static and dynamic has blurred. Anyway.
It didn't really, that's true, because when they added the backends, it didn't really make sense very much. And now it seems like every company has a product called functions, but I guess that's good because we know what it means. Technologies. So I'm just curious off the bat if they're hosting Node.js. Like I'm kind of confused about what we're actually hosting here. Backend APIs through function. So it seems like they might not even be hosting apps. It might just be all serverless. I don't know.
So yeah, I know the answer to these
I hear you
questions.
smiling kind of in that. Okay.
So
okay,
yeah, it's Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of what I think made what they do clearer, they've kind of removed from the marketing almost on purpose. But I wonder how far you have to dig in now to
Yeah,
understand that.
like is this Heroku or is it
Yes.
it's everything. Okay, let's go for it. Let's just try the big blue button here. I will log in with GitHub. And I probably already had an account because so I actually must have trialed this a while ago. Let's see if that was in August 21st of 2020.
Wow, that was like a year ago.
Yeah. So I guess I had tried this. I don't know if we actually went with this for deployment or not. This was actually for an internship program I was helping with for 3 months. We had done something with the creators of Babel. Looks like it's down now, but we had made basically a REPL for Babel and hosted it here, I believe. Okay, well, let's walk through just the getting started.
And Ian, I'm just getting a bit of echo.
Interesting. Okay, here. Maybe I'll turn down my speaker. Is that better?
A little. Just quieter.
Interesting. All right, I can switch to headphones. All right, let's go through.
Yeah, I think it's the problem with it though is because it's hard to. This is why I couldn't really drive, because it's hard to reset if you connect to GitHub. And most people only have one GitHub. Well, most people I know only have one GitHub account, I think.
Yeah,
I might be
let's try logging out, and I'll make a new account and see where they send us.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
I'll have to make one. I will stop casting so I can check my mail. Okay, now we are in. Pin you.
I do.
Close. Yeah.
Think. Anyway, I've got to stop saying what I know. This is the problem with
Yeah, you do. Yeah. All right, here we go. So here we are, and we'll set up my name. This will be Devx5. We are going to use it for work. My role will be engineering. I'm an engineering business owner. My company is 1 to 10. And what do I want to do?
Learn about Netlify. There we go.
Yeah, learn about Netlify. With continuous deployment, you can trigger builds by pushing to Git or via webhooks. That's all.
This is where I worry, because you've already connected a GitHub account. But anyway, we'll see.
Oh, but I've made a new account now to see what happens.
Yeah.
Netlify integrates with Let's Encrypt and automatic provision distribution new certificates. Yep. This is kind of standard these days, right? This kind of.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I use them to get certificates, but then to be fair, I don't use any other form of hosting anymore. I have my domain somewhere, and then I use Netlify. So my main experiences of having to get certificates has been with Netlify recently.
I see. It's kind of bare here. Like, it's not really giving. Like, I thought I'd get a next step, but I got those 3. I kind of got.
It's interesting.
We're kind of back in the. It's like, okay, deploy like new site from Git. Choose the Git provider whose site source code is hosted.
Yep.
Everything. I need more. I'm going to try to see if I can find a getting started tutorial.
Yep. They do have plenty of docs. So I know some of the people who work on them. So.
All-in-one platform for automating web projects, replace your hosting infrastructure, continuous integration, and deployment pipeline with a single workflow. Integrate dynamic functionality like serverless functions, user authentication, and form handling as your projects grow. Okay, so I'm starting to understand now that it's like, it is static hosting with like dynamic parts to it, but it's not exactly hosting a Node.js app.
No. It's basically, I know this and I don't think it spoils too much. The core product is basically a giant Docker container that Just has a bunch
Interesting.
of common config. And that image is actually open source. So you can go and like make pull requests to propose different build systems and things like that if you want to. Or you used to be. I assume
Cool.
it still is. So,
Is that it?
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So let's learn how to create deploys. By the way, are you still getting the echo?
A little, but
Weird. That's strange because it's I can barely hear you, so I'm sure the microphone can't. Oh, here we go. Probably maybe this will turn it off. I think that'll do
bom,
it.
bom, bom. No, it's still there.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll have to make do with it. Hopefully it's not coming through the stream.
I think that's good now, yep. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, understand the connecting. So something that's kind of frustrating me is like they keep asking to deploy with Git, but if I don't have anything, this isn't really helpful. Like like they're kind of assuming you have a site already that to deploy.
Yes, but for sure. But you probably do. This is the thing.
Yeah.
This is what I've sometimes struggled to explain Netlify to people who've not heard of it. Is they kind of don't entirely understand what it is, and you kind of explain, well, it's a build pipeline and a hosting service, effectively, and then they start to understand. So you probably do have a repository, and you want it's hosted somewhere, and of course that doesn't suit everything. This is the whole thing we have to. There's probably a little. It does mention for modern web projects, so it's not like you can come here and host a Go application or something. It's for a website, basically.
Oh, I see why they're avoiding. It's so easy to deploy.
Yeah.
That if we
actually, so Netlify's first ever product, quote unquote, was actually just a form where you could copy and paste either HTML or a zip file of HTML, and they would just host it. So, and I think that's still an option. I think you can actually just literally just upload HTML files as well if you wanted to. But that's kind of not so useful. But if you really wanted to keep it extremely simple, you don't even have to use Git.
This is asking me to use GitHub again, even though I just made it. Huh.
Yeah, you will have to connect to Git at some point. And if you, as I say, you can use Netlify without it. But really, if you don't, you're missing out on a lot. So yeah, I think it's probably best if you have another project and just use that effectively.
Yeah, let's see what I have, what I can.
And this is where we get into fun as well, because GitHub permissions can be messy. It's not
probably
really
have some kind of personal thing. Maybe we can try to deploy the Babel sandbox again. Yeah. I know that's going to be somewhere.
It's probably the one already there, unless it's a different.
Okay. What did I shoot? Oh, did it actually know what it? Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, it made me a new repo. Okay, that makes more sense.
Oh.
And it's deploying the template.
Okay.
Just switched around accounts too much. Okay, so we're deploying this. I think I clicked the button, and so hopefully it's deploying. I'm kind of at a loss of what I did. Do you know what I did?
No.
Yeah, what are we actually building here? Like, is it just an empty?
I think so, which is a bit odd. I've never really gone through this process before, though. So I came from wanting to build something very specific. So
yeah, let's see.
It looks like something happened. So you can just click, if you click the link above, and to see.
Okay, yeah. So we deployed that simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who are we supporting on Ko-Fi? Okay, so we deployed a simple website through one-click button. I understand that it's hosting. I guess I'm still just feeling like I need a tutorial, kind of,
Yeah, I will agree. There's probably a fair bit of assumptions here. I don't know if that's fairly. It's weird. It's one of those ones where we come to this with this very fresh pair of eyes, but I think Yeah. I don't know though, because I will say I had an experience at work where we needed some of the features that Netlify offers, and I tried to convince one of our front end engineers that that we should just use Netlify, and they actually hadn't heard of it either, and they came back to me and said, "No, I'm just going to upload it to a GCP bucket instead."
Yeah.
I don't really understand.
And how did that?
So I think maybe there is sometimes a communication issue here, in that I sent them to Netlify and I understood very clearly what it does because I've used it for years. But someone even in this sort of same ecosystem didn't entirely understand what to do. So maybe it's a fair comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I'm also playing dumb a little bit because I do understand what it does. But I'm kind of like trying, like, I mean, I could go parse through the reference docs here, but I guess it's like, it's interesting to me that Netlify has a really great reputation for DX, and they've kind of just avoided the getting started guide. Like they actually just don't seem to have.
They're taking a big assumption.
Yeah. Like where, like the initial hand holding of like, this is what Netlify does, and here, like for example, forms, right? Yep. I've never been sold on forms anywhere.
Well, this is all the other stuff. So I think the perspective here, and I kind of come from a certain path in my tech history that explains why Netlify appeals to me. So I come from actually a background of building Drupal sites back in the day, and that is the old school dynamic website, basically. PHP, databases, a crap ton of caching on top of it to make it performant, especially in the days when I was doing it. And then I switched to static sites, and I found them amazing because it's a much more performant, and your content becomes kind of separated and things like that. We've looked at a whole bunch of things where we see that. But then, of course, you lose a whole bunch of functionality that you get in a dynamic website, generated content, form handling, and all these sorts of things. So this is where Netlify has added all this stuff on top. But a lot of people still basically just use it for hosting static site generators. This is the thing. And I think this is where you get into I heard this conversation actually today on the Accidental Tech podcast around some changes with another product, a completely unrelated product, where often a product, starts as a hobbyist. So for someone like me who just wants to set up some static sites, great. But then, of course, at a certain point, a company needs to make money, and they have to introduce business features. And then it becomes a bit more complicated, and people like you and I are like, why is this useful to me? It's like, because that's not a feature aimed at people like us. It gets kind of interesting, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I've installed the Netlify CLI locally, and it's basically using that Docker image, I think you're saying, to run the Netlify stack locally. And so now I'm serving this local folder. There's nothing in it.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think that's what's interesting to me is these functions and forms, because I feel like, look, we figured out the.
Try and because I will give you a hint. Like basically with any of the common static site generators they support, so Gatsby, Next, Hugo, Eleventy. In fact, I feel like a few have dropped off their list there. I'm actually not even seeing Jekyll there anymore, which is super weird. They basically look for a build file and build it. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward, and you only run into problems if you have particularly custom things. Like I once broke Netlify by I had a Jekyll site that also then used Pandoc to generate PDFs. And that Pandoc is so heavy, it basically broke their build image. Which
I usually run into those. Yeah.
It's a very niche problem. But then they start to add these other things. So I would say, try going through the form process and see how.
I would say the form, because we understand. Like I think so. My guess is they're like, it's so easy to deploy. There is no getting started because it's getting started is one button. So
I reckon
we may as well dump you into this and let you click a button and get.
Try some of the new things. Try the form. Yeah. Try the form first, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just try the forms.
Here's where you can actually see the build process get triggered as well.
I'm gonna try to do it locally too.
Okay.
And let's just do a HTML template to start, because that's something missing off the bat here. HTML, what's it called? Basic template. Basic example. Senior engineer still doing this stuff here. Okay.
I say why, don't worry.
I've been doing so much React Native recently. This is so foreign. All right.
Hang on one quick second, because I think that does say here's an example. Is that actually the form you want?
Create an HTML form on any page of your site. Add data Netlify equals true or Netlify attribute to the form tag, and you can start receiving submissions to your site.
Yes, I think you might need to create the form first. And
your
then,
form's
it might
name
give you
attribute
different
difference will
code.
call the form in that. Yeah. So I actually need to make a form.
I think so, or this isn't really going to go anywhere. But
I was
again,
curious if they have just a generic catch-all endpoint. That's what I was
maybe.
wondering.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. When Netlify bots parse the static HTML. Oh, so the bot is actually reading the HTML.
Okay, all right, ignore me then.
That's
so
cool.
I it's been a while since I used a form briefly, but I don't have massive need for it. Or to be honest with you, if I'm doing it, something like a MailChimp subscribe box where it has its own form anyway. So, okay, ignore me. Continue as you were.
The data Netlify true Netlify attribute is gone, and the hidden form name inputs value matches the name attribute of the form. I don't really understand this. Hidden name equals form name value equals. Is there a hidden field here? Or Netlify attribute from the form tag and inject it. Oh, it injects. Okay, so basically it's saying it's going to remove the data Netlify equals true and put a hidden input. But I don't really understand why. Submit HTML forms with Ajax. You don't have to, but you can submit static HTML forms using Ajax. Must have a data Netlify, true Netlify, and try the form tag. Here is an Ajax form submission example using the fetch API. Okay, so this will give us some more idea of where it's going. It's going to post to the root. Huh. Yeah, it's kind of a question is where do these variables, what is catching the form input, which is the whole magic here?
Yeah, I think it's just a general one. There's a similar concept with the DNS handling. You basically just forward everything and they work it out. You don't kind of have your own specific settings or anything. You kind of say that these domains are on these sites in their backend, and then you point to their name servers, and that's basically it. So I think it's probably a similar process, which, yeah, sounds like a problem for them, but that's for them to handle, not us. So
I am a follower. This is I'm really curious about because it's local, using their local dev tool. So have the implemented forms locally. No, they haven't. Let's try to deploy this then. Netlify. I probably need to log in first.
yeah.
Authorize. Cool. Netlify deploy. Link this directory to an existing site. Create and configure a new site. Devx5 form. Everything looks good on your initial draft URL. Okay. Let's see if it works in drafts. See what happens. Okay, yeah, so that is really cool.
And now if you go to the dashboard for that site, which should appear on the list now.
Yeah, let's see.
I think you have it open somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there we go.
Okay. Then there should be a tab for form.
Scroll down. I actually just saw it, but it says, oh, there we go. Yeah, it just came in.
Maybe this is not. So you saw it somewhere?
Yeah, but hang on. That's odd because it said a submission, but I didn't see any values, which was odd. I can't quite remember myself. Let me see.
Yeah, maybe if it's not deployed, it doesn't count. Let's try to deploy it.
Submissions. Yeah, it does show you verified submissions.
Yeah, it said it wasn't verified, so I wonder if it's because it's.
I don't entirely know how
Oh, they're getting marked as spam.
it is verified. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
They're getting marked as spam somehow.
Yeah, that's it. I had the same thing, and to be fair, I think they might have added this spam thing more recently because I got quite a lot of spam through the form, which is why I turned it off. So I think that might be a more recent feature.
Okay, this is cool, and I'm guessing. So I'm kind of curious, like what I do from here. So if I'm the marketing team and I collect this now I want to export these or something, right? Do I have to use Zapier now?
You can. There's actually, if you go back to the settings, the form settings, so settings and usage, or either way, you'll see notification. So you do webhooks basically.
I see.
That's pretty much. Or you can export them as a CSV, which yeah. I think that's fine. And they do now have this concept of plugins that can do a whole variety of different things. So maybe there's actual, well, it's build plugins, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't know if it's actually, I think it's build plugins. So to be honest with you, I feel like Netlify sometimes has features that they roll out, like forms that are kind of useful, but not huge features. And then it has other features that become incredibly useful, like the authentication and the build previews and things. So I think there's a bit of a mix with their features sometimes, but it's probably fairly low maintenance to keep it around. So, you know, I think it's also reasonable just to go to a webhook, to be honest with you. It's like, you know, there's so many things people will want to do. Maybe it's just easier to keep it very generic.
Yeah, well, I remember having this really this big realization when I was learning development that, like, you know, CSS and HTML are squares, and the only thing you can do is submit a form on a web page, right? Like, at least back in like when I got started. Now, obviously, JavaScript, there's a lot more you can do, but really, when it comes down to it, you really just have form, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Everything's a square, and all you can really submit are forms.
E-commerce is just a bunch of forms, really.
Yeah.
Oh God, that sounds really depressing. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So you start to see that there. I mean, I would be interested if you tried. So what I would suggest, go to the repository for the project that got created. I think the one earlier.
I don't even know where that repo is, actually.
If you go back to the sites, or I think you have it on GitHub somewhere as well. But so that boring Archimedes blah 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 one.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Go to GitHub and make a. Is that correct? Is that the right one you wanted? Yeah. Make a change.
Yeah, we can use the new. Have you seen this little sidetrack?
I have indeed. I have indeed. Yeah, and if anyone's interested, go back and watch our Gitpod episode, which is somewhat similar.
Okay, I'll just call it updated about.
So this is where I'm also interested to see if Netlify actually picks up your build settings, because it seemed to just pick them up by default, which is interesting. Let's see if it actually truly did by making a change.
I actually don't know how to commit. Here we
go. Yeah, okay.
Message.
And I heard that GitHub themselves have actually exclusively moved everyone to using this, which I don't know. I get it, dog fooding, but I strongly dislike doing everything in the browser personally.
Me too. I think that's we're gonna see this war kind of.
I know. Okay, so.
How do I go back?
You just click back.
You're getting a 2-for-1 this episode. Here we go.
So did the change go through?
Updated the title. Yeah. So now let's go to Netlify.
So in theory, if everything went according to plan, refresh the page. I don't know. Sometimes it just loads these by default, but if you refresh,
I don't know if it was
yeah.
automatically.
So no, there we go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So that
21.
should, yeah. So
then
you
if we go
should
here-
see the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, but this is where it gets even more interesting. Go back to GitHub again.
Okay.
This time, let's just edit a file. I honestly, because I don't know how to do this in the web editor interface. So just edit a file, make another change somewhere, scroll down, and instead of committing to master, commit to a new branch. That's it.
Make a pull request?
Yeah, make a pull request.
And then we will see if it does.
No. Stay in GitHub. So here, this is where it's also, you should get an automatic preview link that builds somewhere.
I think that's what I found here is the deploy preview.
Yeah, but it's also on the pull request, which is super useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so down the bottom there. It's still pending.
First, I think, does it need to run the test before it makes the preview?
Yeah, but it's usually quite quick. It somewhat depends on the build process, of course.
Very cool.
So this is kind of useful. This is where I find Netlify especially useful.
Huh. What is this? Oh, that's whoa.
Oh, that is new. I had not seen that before.
Netlify is record screen. Record screen. Wow.
That is new. I had not seen that before. I don't know if is that Netlify or is that this template? Oh, it is Netlify. I can see the logo. That is new. That is quite new. Because I was wondering when you mentioned that whole thing about feedback, I was like, I've never known Netlify to give feedback on things. So that is actually super useful. I am going to tell people at work about that.
Team members, function logs. I mean, it is really simple. I understand it's like a very simple, it's like static Heroku with the extra authentication function. I mean, forms.
Yeah, so the authentication function is, you can try going through it. I'm not sure, I've not really done functions, but you can try the authentication. It's a bit more complex. So this is where it's interesting to see if you can get it to work or not. Also, I'm not 100% sure if you're really going to see it visualized. I've basically used it. They have this open source project called Netlify CMS that's kind of separate, where you can basically add like a basic CMS front end to a static site. And then you use authentication in that, so you don't get anyone trying to use the CMS interface, basically. But I've always been in that kind of point, like I'm not entirely sure what else I would use it for. I don't know, but that's me. So
no, I agree with you. It's hard to know when I would invest in this.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing. I would say 90% of their 90% of their users use 5% of the functionality. I think.
Like I understand the static hosting. This is a bet on a new way of development, which is simple. Like to get granted, it is simple. I kind of want to play with the functions as well to see.
It's something I've never really worked with, so go for it. I'm actually this is something I've never done myself, so go wild.
This one is interesting. They're really recommending the CLI,
which you have, I think, already. But
yeah, which we've already got. So let's create a new function here. Relatively size base directory in your repository where the function should live. Okay, updating site settings, Netlify functions directory, blah, 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 created. JavaScript, TypeScript, we use JavaScript. Async await, GraphQL, node fetch, that's cool. Create. That seems like it's going to take us the rest of the time if we create users. Fauna. Proxy GA for your domain to avoid ad block.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And that said, Netlify does also have very basic analytics that I think are server side. So that's actually somewhat useful for open source projects, especially who don't want to have analytics. full analytics.
Stripe. Okay, so this is really the meat and potato. Like
this is new as well. I must admit, I interviewed one of the founders of Netlify about this feature when it came out, and none of this was there when at that point, I will say.
The URL shortener.
No, the whole like library you just went through. None of that was there.
Function created from template. Note this function requires routes, form ID, and API auth build environment. Actually, I'm not going to do that one. Let's go with the hello world one. Got it. Created functions hello world cd netlify cd hello world. Okay, let's go back here again, and I'm guessing we're going to need this. So docs on event and context. Synchronous function format. Each JavaScript file deploys a synchronous serverless Lambda function, must export a handler method with the following general syntax. I'm going to get an event payload that looks like a request. Okay, callback syntax. Okay. You know, it's funny. I worked on a product called PubNub Functions.
PubHub. Yeah, I remember that.
PubNub, yeah.
Oh, PubNub, yeah, I remember that. They're still going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I worked here for 6 years, and I don't even know if there's functions even here. It is. So it's very interesting. Like almost all these products have turned out to be exactly the same.
Yeah, I think also wasn't it Pusher did a similar thing, and they've all kind of got, forgive the pun, pushed aside because I guess other platforms offer it as part of a whole bunch of other things now.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're all almost exactly the same and have the same syntax, the same exact. I mean, almost like all of the same limitations. Like everything has to be wrapped in try catch.
Yeah, well, it's
you have to return a promise. Let me see. I won't spend too much time on them. They're not the focus here. But so we got this. This is confusing me. When done, you can invoke the function at Netlify functions function name. So why don't we first just try to run this locally and see?
Yeah, I think this is where the local dev thing becomes more useful. Otherwise, you have to keep deploying it endlessly.
Run any Netlify API, build, completion, deploy, local dev server. Invoke.
Ian, can you just drag the bottom of your terminal window up a bit?
Yeah, is it
Is it just hidden behind our faces right now?
Is that better?
Just a little bit more. There we go.
Invoke. My functions directory is undefined. Did I forget to set it in netlify.toml? That's interesting since I used the Netlify. Maybe I need to be in a group.
You're too low down.
Huh? Oh, okay.
Still too low down. There we go. That's it.
Pick a function trigger. Oh, that's really nice. Actually, This is cool. Invoke with an emulated Netlify identity authentication headers. No.
No. You're opening yourself up for a world of pain.
Apparently I am. But it's the hello world. Like, why would I need the authentication headers?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Authentication for what?
Ran into an error invoking function. Request to localhost Netlify failed reason, connection refused. I don't have any.
Maybe go for the emulated one.
Sorry?
Maybe go for the emulated one just for now.
What was that? Emulated.
How you when you got that thing about invoke and it said, do you want that one. So say yes, maybe.
Well, I tried it both ways. I think I needed to run Netlify dev first and then go because the server wasn't running. Okay, so we have triggered the function, and so how would I do this through a form or something? Like I don't understand. I'd want to have some kind of hook or something trigger this, right? Let's see how this looks right now. So
I don't think you've pushed that yet, so the remote platform won't be aware of its existence. But
Whoa! What happened here? Warning: module not found. No cached functions were found.
warnings though.
Module not found. Cannot find module fetch for URL shortener. Okay, well I don't need that actually. You like that? Like that.
I think we should rename this live stream to Christine and Break Things.
Okay, I don't know. I'm just gonna deploy prod. Okay. Let me see it's gonna be here and it's gonna be under, like, for me, it's like I can understand what's happening here, but I almost like want the associated visual of the UI for some reason.
Yep, fair enough.
Function log. Okay, so now in theory, we should be able to, I still don't understand how how to hit where this URL endpoint is. Like, if I want to have my form hit this or some other service trigger this, I don't really understand.
I think it's, oh, hang on, go back. I think it was just, I think that is a URL. So I think it's just
you know what threw me off is the,
I know it's odd, isn't it? But I think that is a valid, I don't know, I guess that's a valid URL. It doesn't feel like it is, but so I'm guessing if you hit that.
Okay.
When I first saw that as well, I was slightly confused. It is a strange URL to see.
They want to namespace it. That makes sense. Okay, that's kind of cool. So you can make.
I think it's so it could work. I think it's so it could work locally and remotely. Maybe I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think it's so you don't override it with anything when you deploy it. Like, it's very unlikely that you'll. Okay, we're about on time here, right? So should we wrap up there? Is there anything else we should try?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more, but yeah, I think you kind of get the rough idea. Yeah,
I'm curious to see like a Netlify kitchen sink. I don't know if that's a word people still use.
I don't know. I sort of know what you mean. I'm also not sure if it's a word people use anymore, but that's the CMS. Yeah, that's something else. So the CMS side is a whole other thing, but that's kind of almost broken out into a community project, really, I think, which is also quite useful.
I want to see what you can build with Netlify. I want to be inspired, like here is a web forum we created using Netlify,
It's true. I think they have a lot of the starter projects, maybe with the various. So if you look at Gatsby, there's an essential Gatsby repo. If you look at Create React app, there's nothing. If you look at Hugo, they have. It seems to vary from example to example. I feel like there's an assumption that most people come with something already, maybe.
I'm looking at the most requested support topics.
The support is fairly engaging as well, especially considering I think a lot of people use Netlify for free. They're still fairly responsive on here, which is good.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot here, and that was kind of where I was interested to see where you went, because when I started with Netlify, they basically did one or two things, so it was very easy to kind of know what to do and know how to start. And you had a very particular use case. I want to host my static site somewhere. I'll go Netlify and I'll figure it out. But now there's kind of this whole suite of features, and this definitely feeds into this aspect of having to run a business. Hosting static sites is not really a business model. So what do? You do other things. So they've added all these other things. And I don't know how popular they are, but it also means that getting started is harder because I wonder how many people go in and use all the features, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Yeah, and there's also things like limits on the free plan, which is how they also monetize. Which with my own personal stuff, I haven't hit. I have hit it on one of the open source projects I'm on, but that's actually primarily because we have extremely poor build settings, and it just builds the website every time someone pushes a change, so which is unnecessary. So it's also kind of our fault. Yeah.
They're kind of fun. Netlify's kind of, I like this, like built by a bunch of wonderful people and one total weirdo.
Who knows who that is?
Which one is the weirdo?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of get what you mean. I think it's similar with Vercel and Next now. It's like these projects have to go from being just a hacker fun project to a business at a certain point. And that means adding a bunch of stuff. And when you start adding a bunch of stuff, you also stand the chance of confusing people. So yeah, it's somewhat challenging. But there's a lot that they offer that I find exceptionally useful, I will say. The DNS hosting, the certificates is fantastic. Very easy to do the thing with Let's Encrypt and stuff. Like, for example, I'm running Let's Encrypt on a Raspberry Pi to access it remotely through various browser interfaces, and I have to manually refresh that certificate all the time, every 90 days, whereas Netlify will do that automatically for you and things like that. So that's stuff like that is quite useful. Yeah.
This is interesting. So like, it's like, how do you build an e-commerce site with Netlify, right? Like kind of question I had. And they're advertising, hey, you should actually use this JavaScript package.
Well, yeah,
right. Which is kind of, it's kind of, you see this modular future, I guess, which is what the messaging is like, hey, the future is going to be these like heavy JavaScript module packages, custom sites, and like not that much backend. Like, why are you, if we extrapolate from the API ecosystem, like there is no backend, right? It's all APIs. It's all
for sure. Yeah. And that's basically what Jamstack is. I think it's JavaScript, APIs, and I always forget what the M is. Money? I don't know. I can't remember.
JavaScript, API, and markup.
Markup. That would make sense. Yeah.
Oh, coined by the CEO of Netlify in 2015.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually interesting because they're still fairly open to promoting their effectively competitors, which is interesting. I feel like the whole ecosystem is still at a space where there's enough people in it that competition is not such of a problem, which will change, I'm sure, at a certain point. But at the moment, it's fairly collaborative, which is good. So yeah. So I think in summary, we can say post getting started is pretty good. Sometimes I feel like it's missing a bit of a higher level summary of why you'd want to use it in the first place. But if you know why that is and you get past that, then you get to some reasonably easy onboarding. And the documentation is mostly there, I think, as I've hit a problem, help me. And also the more complex stuff. So I will say you generally do start to need configuring things in the build process and stuff like that, excluding things, including things, that kind of stuff. And that's when you need to start doing manual config. Also enabling like certain versions of dependencies and stuff like that. And that's when you need to go to the documentation. But
from my, I got started as a front-end developer, and most of what I was doing was making marketing pages and also event websites, things that were, like South by Southwest RSVP page.
Yep.
And those things are, temporary, very high traffic and need to be 100% stable. There's no reason to, right? So there's a big market for that, for the marketing focused pages and blogs and subdomains and things like that. So I totally see that use case here. I think you and I are probably more in this deeper tooling space where we're like making tools or writing full on docs, things like that. So maybe it's not immediate, but for plenty of people, it's.
I use it for hosting a lot of documentation sites.
Yeah.
We are
And it's
using it
probably
for hosting.
fantastic, right?
We were using it for hosting
yeah.
open source product that I work on. The commercial one isn't, but that's just because the deployment process is insanely complex and custom.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get it to work, but I think it's too difficult right now. There's certain places where Netlify falls down, and it's mostly not really Netlify's fault. Just the complexity of an application that uses various private things, and making it work would probably require more work than is necessary for what effectively ends up being static HTML. The developers will sometimes find it just easier to do their own processes instead.
I think I'm bullish on this. I think that I could see I don't think it's going to be within like the next year. I think it'll be a timeline of like 5 years, but I could see building a full app using Netlify authentication,
Yeah,
and functions, because
I will caveat that's because the documentation we're trying to serve is actually inside the whole application itself, so it's a bit complicated. But when we break that out, which we will be doing, something like Netlify will become more useful, I think, basically. But at the moment,
I'm saying about the monolith, like, could you make
Yeah.
a full interactive web technology using Netlify? Like, would you invest in it as a, I'm going to start my SaaS product?
I think people could and probably do. I mean, people are doing that with things like Lambda, AWS Lambda, which is effectively a lot of what we saw. So I think so. It requires a lot of rethinking, but I think definitely.
I could see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see it. If the functions are protected by authentication, I could see it.
Yeah, well, they can be. Yeah, I've never really dug much into as I say, I have used Netlify for a very long time, and I'm a big fan, but I use it very, very basically. So
yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, would I bet on this in the future, 5 years, 10 years, where this is, we're going to be building sites like this? And I'm actually, I think that that's possible. I do.
Cool. All right, Ian, how can people stay in touch with you? Find out what you're up to.
You can find me on Twitter. My username is Ian Jennings, and the E is a 3. And my personal site is jnngs.com. How about you, Chris?
I got lost in there's this mobile brand from Walmart, which I don't live in the US, so I've never seen it, but that's called On.
Yeah. Actually, I just bought a Bluetooth speaker on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear this on an Android podcast. It constantly like on. Anyway, you can find me on christianschiller.com or at chrischinch on Twitter. I've been away for a couple of weeks, which means there's not much there at the moment, but I worked on a whole bunch of stuff whilst I was away, which will be there soon.
Where have you been?
I was away in various bits of Eastern Europe for a couple of weeks.
Nice.
Probably easier to just leave it there. Working on my novel and working on some blog posts. And those will be the things you see soon. And my streams will be coming back.
Nice.
My other streams will be coming back because I took a bit of a break. Probably a good job I did because the Wi-Fi where I was wouldn't have coped. But anyway, we'll see you again in 2 weeks, same time. That is 3:30 p.m. UTC plus 2. It's probably the easiest way of saying it. I don't know. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Please leave comments, etc. And suggest topics. We generally decide our topic fairly last minute before. So if you've got one,
yeah.
If you've got one you'd like us to run through, then let us know. But until then, Ian, sign us off.
Signing off, this has been Developers, otherwise known as Devx5, and we will see you in 2 weeks.